Well, the rule is they don't come back into this room unless they get sprayed off.
What was it like the first time Bethany got onto her Surly
Well, she loves this bike.
It's pretty comfortable to ride. When I get on it, I kind of just fall into it. It kind of sits with me.
Sits with me.
It sits with me. That's the description of a good bicycle right there. It sits with me. Hi, y'all, and welcome back to Tell Me About Your Bike. My name is Wesley, and I'm the host of this podcast. Bicycles are vehicles for storytelling. And this is part 2 of my conversation with my old biking friend Liz Schleeper. We're joined in this episode by Liz's partner Bethany Cahill as we reflect on what makes a bike fit, how technology changes, and how the bicycle stays the same. We also talk about how something as simple as a bike rack can impact the biking culture of a community. So join me for episode 4 of Tell Me About Your Bike. So tell me about the room. Where are we sitting? Because there's some people who would be really, really impressed, and other people would be horrified, I think. But
well, this is the utility room in my house. But what I love about this room is it's actually been rebuilt. It was, I don't know if you remember this, but it actually sat on the ground. It was what they call like kind of a shed, just sort of attached to the house.
Right, and then you had like 3 steps that went in the door to the kitchen.
Correct. And now it's part of the house. So we tied the roof, they completely tore down the old room that was here, tied the roof in. So this is a new room. I think it's like a 16 by 12 foot space. Uh-huh. And, the washing machine and dryer are here, but everything else that's here is bike related, I would say.
You've got some heavy duty storage shelves over here. Looks like maybe you got them at Costco or Home Depot.
Yes, at Home Depot.
And you got boxes of helmets for donation on them.
Yes.
And of course the vacuum cleaner, but then you got more ski poles and bike pumps. And then that's next to your washing machine that has a magnetic sticker for the Tri-Power Cycling Club, which is no longer...
Yes, Tri-Power still exists. But as I look at that magnetic sign, it cracks me up because that's a very old...
Yeah, that logo's at least 15 years old.
Yeah, more like 25 years old. So, yeah. The sponsors on there are... Final Kick doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. And you got your washers, and then right above your washers is this great bike print on the wall. It looks like a negative of a road bicycle with old school non-aerodynamic brake cables sticking out of it and down tube shifters. So that's like a 1980s, 1970s 10-speed bike.
Yeah.
And it even has a reflector on it still.
Yes.
They haven't taken the reflector off of it on the back. And then you keep going around, and now you got more storage areas with pedals and saddles and a yoga mat that looks very clean.
Yeah, the yoga mat doesn't get used as much as the bikes.
And an old kayak paddle, and it looks like some Yakima rack trays for putting your bike on the roof, and a pair of wheels that might go with a beautiful red and silver, do you say it's Sirota?
It's a Sirota.
Sirota, steel, aluminum.
I think that's aluminum.
I think you're right. I think it's aluminum. Aluminum Sirota frame, beautiful. And all you got, 10 bikes in here? Hanging up, about half of them hanging off the roof, the ceiling?
Well, there are 8 bikes hanging up.
6, 7, 8 hanging up.
And then my sister's bike, Cruiser, sitting down here on the floor, along with a donated little bike. The interesting thing about this room is it's split into my stuff and then some donated stuff.
Right.
So I'm very clear. Most everything on that shelf that you pointed out is our donations. That way I can keep them separate. And I always know where to find stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's in good boxes. You know exactly where it is. It's not getting mixed up.
Yeah, and then there's like this bike that's just a brand new Roadmaster, just ready to go for the right person. It's small.
Right.
It's 24-inch wheels, so it's going to be for somebody that probably a female.
Yeah, and it's
who's
like
in need.
it's a decent Walmart 18-speed mountain bike. It's not
Yes.
nothing special, but it'll get somebody to work,
Yes.
get somebody to school.
Yes. It's the target audience for the donations are people who need bikes for transportation.
Right.
College students who want or need a bike but just don't have a whole lot of money to be spending on bikes.
Right.
Also, the target audience is just a new rider, somebody who's trying out riding and, hey, let's try it out by trying out a bike and seeing if it's even something I'm interested in. So.
Mm-hmm. And when you say we, who's the we?
I'm president of an organization you're very familiar with because you're a past president. That organization's called Bike Norfolk. It's an advocacy organization here in Norfolk, Virginia. And we do things like bike education and advocacy.
Yeah.
Like getting stuff for people and getting stuff on the street to help people out.
Yeah, working with the city and getting them to formulate a bike plan that actually got implemented. I mean,
Yes.
I think if you'd asked us, when we started pushing on that advocacy 10 or 12 years ago, if we were going to see anything come of it, I think we would have been like, 50-50 shot.
Yes.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of people thinking it was going to work.
Truly, the formation of Bike Norfolk coincides with sort of the city pulling together people to say, yes, we want to get a bike plan going in this city. It also coincides with many other cities trying to make their communities more bike friendly. So Bike Norfolk was kind of there from the beginning, with the city of Norfolk developing a bike friendlier city than it was, let's say, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. They've actually put some money down and spent money changing the streets so that we have bike lanes in a lot of places where we didn't have them before. We've got shared use arrows in a lot of places where we didn't have them before. And they also changed the city code so that when businesses were being put in, they had to include bicycle parking, and that bike parking couldn't be around the back of the building. It had to be as close to the front door as the closest non-handicapped car spot.
Yes.
That meant that suddenly all around town, all these businesses where previously you'd had to struggle to find a place to lock up your bike and you wanted to go inside, now had bike parking everywhere. And it's become kind of this status symbol as you see more creative bike parking show up. So
Yes.
like different new restaurants will compete to have gimmicky but still functional bike racks out
Yes.
front. So I think of Moe's has a habanero pepper and I think a taco and then the word Mo in steel in front of them. And then the
Kogan's on Collie.
Kogan's on Collie. Yeah, they've got it looks like a standard bike rack on the bottom, but it's topped by what my kids call the pizza bike.
Okay.
So it's a a fixed gear bicycle that.
Yes, that's right. Like an upside down bike, is it? Or is it sitting upright?
It's sitting upright, but the rear wheel spins because you can actually walk out there.
Okay.
And you can spin the fixie cranks and watch the wheel go around on the back, which kids get a kick out of.
Yeah, I knew it was something. Of course, your kids would remember that before I would.
They do, yeah. And then if you go to the gun shop, they've got a bike rack that's shaped like a semi-automatic pistol.
Now that I didn't know.
Yeah. And I think it says 2 next to it as well, or second.
Okay. Well, Second Amendment.
Just in case you missed it.
Yeah, in case I forgot. About the
Virginia.
Constitution, yes.
Here's some of your other favorite bike racks.
Well, the one I worked for TCC, so I always remember that TCC in downtown Norfolk, Tupperware Community College, has one of those racks that was part of a contest.
Yeah, the art contest downtown for bike racks.
Maybe I'm just not very visual right now, but I don't remember exactly what that one looks like either, but I know it's
I think that's the one that kind of looks like a mesh or a wall of bike frames welded together.
Yes.
The one they call the Frankenbike, I think.
The Franken, yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, the Frankenbike, yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that one works pretty well. And then in that same contest is when I put in my bike racks and they installed them in, and they look like U-locks. So
Yes.
it's a set of 3 differently sized U-locks, from like a shorty to a really extra tall long one.
Yes.
But scaled up by 500% so that they're big enough that you can lock a bike to them.
And where is that bike rack?
There's 2 sets of those, and one of them is next to the downtown light rail station.
Okay.
In front of MacArthur Center, between MacArthur and the library.
Yes.
And then the other set of 3 is in front of my old employer's building, Norfolk Southern.
Okay.
Their corporate headquarters downtown.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's got my, occasionally I'll bring people, be there, I'll be like, hey, there's my name.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa! And then they've got, I like the bike racks at schools. I'm really fond of those. And I don't know if you've seen the new bike racks that they put out in front of Larchmont Elementary.
No.
It has got to be almost 100 feet long. And there's usually at least 20 bikes locked to it.
A lot of kids do ride.
A lot of kids are using it.
Uh-huh.
They even put in scooter stands, scooter racks.
Nice.
So they've got like these little, it's like a column that has these discs that come out of it at 2 or 3 levels, and so the kids can and then there's notches in those discs, so the kids can hang their scooters up.
Okay.
On the rack, and then they can, if they want, they can lock it to the rack as well.
Bring the lock through. Okay.
So there's a lot of kids who hang their helmets and their scooters on the racks, and then they're going back and forth across Hampton Boulevard to the neighborhoods there.
Yeah.
So, which is just fantastic to see that.
Well, and that's a new build with the school. I assume they're, when I can think of some of the older schools and the old bike racks that we've talked about before and how they're not really functional.
Yeah, it's got. It's like it's one of those details. Like, I just love looking at it because I'll always like see them and I'll be looking and go, who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah.
Like, I know this was the 70s, but what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like somewhere like it's supposed to have like 2 horizontal slots that you're going to put the chainstays of your bike through,
right,
and then use a little padlock to hold it in place. Or when we were at the library the other day, I don't know if you noticed that the concrete pavement in front of the library had these notches in it, these grooves.
No, I didn't notice.
They're sized for bike wheels, so they're supposed to be so that you could like drop your bike wheel into a notch.
Okay.
Which is a neat idea, except for the fact that if you don't keep that notch cleaned out, dirt accumulates in it, so it gets shallower and shallower.
Ah, okay.
And if your wheel isn't just the right size, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So it's still there.
Right.
It's now just a
not
piece
being
of
really
sidewalk,
used as,
and there's a new bike rack now.
Right.
So you don't have to lock it up to that anymore. But that gets me when I look at that one. I'm like, who are they? So tell me about, let's see, what do we got here? This is your mountain bike?
Well, that's Bethany's mountain bike.
This is Bethany's mountain bike, and it's German bicycle technology?
That's a Ghost.
Okay.
I don't know too much about that bike. I know it's one that I think REI actually carries, but she actually ordered it directly from Germany.
But it's a decent aluminum hardtail.
It's a very decent aluminum hardtail that she got for a very good price. It's those cool 27.5 size wheels, so it's between the 29er and the 26. It's very lightweight. I think it's XT build on there. Mm-hmm. So it's a very cool bike actually. And she ordered it directly from Germany because she couldn't quite get that nice build here.
Oh, through REI or something?
Yeah, right.
That makes sense.
So...
Yeah, she's got the the lockout on the front and the lockout button, so she can operate it from her handlebars, and some pretty decent hydraulic disc brakes on it. And
Yes.
she's got 3 in the front and then 10 in the back.
I think it's a 10-speed, yes.
Yeah, that's nice. That's one of the things that I miss on my mountain bike, is that it's a 2x11 and I can't get the gearing big enough to really be able to haul down the hills.
Yeah.
I spin out at about 22, 24 miles an hour on my bike, so it's like, but
I've been wondering about, a lot of the mountain bikes now and the, cross bikes having only the one ring up front, and if people are spinning out. I've been riding with a lot of people who have those now, and I keep asking, have you been spinning out? And the answer always is no. So I think they figured out the ratios pretty well.
Yeah, there's still, compared to like when I used to run like a 52 or a 54 on the front of my bike.
Right.
And, and I could still be pedaling at like 35 or 40 miles an hour. I can't do that on my mountain bike.
Right.
But that's yeah.
The mountain bike really, what's interesting about living around here is we get mountain bikes, but then we end up riding them on the road and on a very flat road. And so there's this need for gears that you don't normally need a mountain bike for.
Yeah, so tell me about this Diodora here that's hanging up. This looks like a steel frame, and you've got it fixie now?
Well, it's this question as to what bike, there's a Diodora sticker, but that doesn't mean that's what the bike is.
Oh, so you think the frame might not be Diodora?
I don't know enough about old steel frames to say.
Okay.
It's obviously it's a converted road bike. It was a steel road bike and converted to a fixed gear. And I bought it from a guy in New Jersey.
Yeah, and it looks like it had drop-down shifters on the down tube at one point. So that would probably put it in the 90s.
I got it in the 90s.
Yeah, so late 80s or early 90s, depending on how cheap it was being built, because that would have been past its prime at that point.
Right.
Although you still see them on like your Surly, you still got the drop downs, and they're using them now for routing the cables. And it's a time tested, proven technology where it's really simple to maintain it.
I hadn't even noticed that. Well, yeah, the shifters aren't on the...
No, the shifters aren't there, but you still got the studs.
Right.
And now they're being used as a cable stop. Okay,
interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. So yes, true.
Yeah, because it especially on that, and that's your Surly long haul trucker.
Right, and actually that's Bethany's. I have a Surly over on the other side of the wall. It's that's a long haul trucker that she uses, and I use a cross check.
Oh my gosh, this is a beautiful Surly. So it's like a purple color, and you got some green anodizing as your kind of your accent color on it.
Yeah.
And disc brakes, and are those 26-inch wheels?
Those are, yes.
So what was it like the first time Bethany got onto her Surly?
Well, she loves this bike. We took that bike, that long haul trucker, and my cross check from DC to Pittsburgh on the C&O Canal Trail, and that's part of the ride, and then the rest of the ride is on what they call the Gap, the Great Allegheny Passage Trail.
Okay.
So all off-road, all different types of surfaces, but gravel, dirt, different off-road surfaces. Pretty widely known path that goes from DC to Pittsburgh. So that bike has done it and done it well.
And that, it looks like you've kept it in good condition there. Just washed it actually down before you hung your bike back up. You've got a clean bike. My bike at home is not clean.
Right. Well, the rule is they don't come back into this room unless they get sprayed off.
So tell me about the room. Bethany, we were talking about your Surly over here, and I was asking Liz about the first time that you rode it. Is there anything you want to say about it?
I wanted one for years, and when I first bought the Crosscheck, I was torn.
Uh-huh.
But then I quickly found out that the Crosscheck really wasn't made for heavy loads, really serious touring where you had all your items that you needed.
Oh, like the long haul trucker would be.
Right.
Okay.
So when I got the Crosscheck, it was fun and I liked it, but when I thought about really doing something where you were just out on your own and you had everything you needed as far as food and gear and clothes and a tent, the Crosscheck wasn't the bike. So I found a very small long haul trucker disc on the floor up in Northern Virginia that they couldn't get rid of, and I called about it. So I went up there and I bought it and then brought it back and pretty much customized it the way I wanted it. So
it is a very cool looking bike.
Thank you.
I love your bar end shifters on it, and the green tape that works out. And the tape is matching your anodized seat clamp on here. I don't know if you have any other green on it, but is there a little? Oh yeah, there's a little green up front, isn't there?
I pretty quickly found out that they cut the stem too short.
Oh.
So I ordered another fork and stem. And they, when you get them, when they're not on the bike already, you have to get black.
Okay.
So it's got a black fork and stem that's not cut at all.
Right.
I'm short, but I also, I had to end up using a bunch of spacers, but so I don't think that stem that's on there now is not cut at all.
But that's not actually a bad thing for the type of riding that you're doing, because then that gives you a little bit more space for being able to clamp bags on and secure things. So it's not necessarily a negative. It doesn't look absurdly long on there. It's got a good size to it. But I can see it now that you say it. Yeah.
It's pretty comfortable to ride. You just kind of, when I get on it, I kind of just fall into it instead of sitting on it.
Right.
It kind of sits with me.
Oh, see, that's the perfect feeling.
It sits with me.
It sits with me. That's the description of a good bicycle right there. It sits with me. I like that. And I guess that's what I haven't found with my bamboo bike. Is it doesn't sit with me. I'm having to conform myself to it, and even though I thought this is gonna be perfect, it's not. The bottom bracket is too low, and I strike the cranks on stuff, and if I'm on it for more than an hour, even 45 minutes, my hands start to go numb.
Yeah.
Even though I've put good bars on it, it just doesn't. And I don't get that with my mountain bike. My mountain bike really just fits me, and I'm on it, and I can just feel this bike is just an extension of me, and I'm moving, the bike is moving with me, which Stroke of Genius by Paul Fresnel. The bike is a stroke of genius. On that day in the 19th century, when Michaud put a chain and pedals on it, it had practically attained its final form. Since then, they've refined the details, they've been fanatical about the subtleties, but the basics of the machine are the same. If I compare my yellow bike from 1960 to my metallic beige bike of the year 2000, their differences are minimal. The latter is lighter by 3 kilos and more rigid, but not by too much. Its gear shifters are in the brake levers, its saddle is made of plastic covered with leather, which might not indicate progress. The fork crown is no longer chromed. There is real progress. Clipless pedals, which spare me the hard labor of adjusting the cleats under the shoes, but which give the rider, when he's on foot, a duck walk that's hardly compatible with the dignity of the pedestrian. After 40 years of riding, I've seen steel replaced by aluminum, which groaned under a standing rider, aluminum replaced by carbon fiber by titanium, and titanium by steel, and on it goes. The fork stood up and straightened out, only to curve again. The wheelbase got tighter, then loosened. We went from 10 speeds to 24 and back to 12. It's easy to distinguish real progress from fashions. These are details, certainly costly details. Shaving grams ends up costing a fair amount, but they're fundamentally unimportant. The bike is a brilliant device that prevents a seated person by the force of just his or her own muscles to go twice as far and twice as fast as a person on foot. Thanks to the bike, there is a faster man. The bike is in itself a form of doping, which doesn't simplify things. It's the tool of natural speed. It's the shortest path to doubling of yourself. Twice as fast, 2 times less tired, twice as much wind in your face. It's all right, always, to want more. In each episode of Tell Me About Your Bike, I like to tell you about a podcast that I listen to on my bike. This week, I want to get meta and acknowledge the podcast Start With This. Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner of Night Vale fame give you a bi-weekly dose of insight into the creative process, a recommendation on something to consume, and a creative assignment for something to produce. Jeffrey and Joseph came to fame through their podcast Welcome to Night Vale. Night Vale is to podcasting what This American Life is to public radio. If you haven't listened to Night Vale, go check it out. You are in for an amazing treat. I've got to confess that I stopped listening after the first few episodes of Start With This because I felt guilty that I wasn't producing my own podcast fast enough. But nonetheless, I felt inspired to actually do the hard and rewarding work of editing my recordings into a finished podcast. It's a challenge to not get overwhelmed by my inner critic and my inner demons. But now that I've got a few podcasts published, I think it's time for me to listen to some more Start With This while I'm riding my bike. So thanks y'all for joining me for another episode of Tell Me About Your Bike. Please rate and review and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcasting platform. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. If you really, really liked it, please share this podcast with someone you know who needs a podcast produced. Pass my name on to them. I'm between seasonal bicycle jobs right now, and I'm looking to tell more audio stories. By the time this episode is published, I'll have my Patreon page up. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Tell Me About Your Bike. If you've got a story to tell about your bike, drop me a line. Let's meet up, ride together, and make some memories. Cheers, y'all.